Welcome back to Bengals Backstage. Richard Skinner joining me again. We have some burning questions about this Bengals team as they are now a few games into the season, a few weeks. This is what we needed on a rainy day around Cincinnati. We need a nice fire. Let's talk about them. I got the questions right here. We're going to start off with the biggest question coming into the season was the offensive line. This is back-to-back great weeks that they put in. Only one sack this week, no sacks the week before. Have they turned the corner? Is this offensive line legitimate?
I think it is. It's we're not talking 1988 Super Bowl Bengals offensive line, but you're talking about a very competent offensive line. Go back to those first two games. 9 sacks, and as Zach Taylor pointed out, a lot of times those were not all on the offensive line. A couple of blitz pickups, one on a tight end, one where Joe Burrow held it too long and had a free runner that he missed. So not all 9 on those guys. And the other part to it too is, and this is where I'm kind of getting a little optimistic about this line, last 2 weeks Jackson Carman was the starting right guard. Is that now is that the differentiator that's made this line better? We're going to find out quickly with how good Green Bay is. But I think they've put themselves in the competent category. That's a big step from last year.
Our next burning question is about the rest of the offense. It was called into question after the Chicago game. They've played better on offense, looked more cohesive. What is the offensive identity of this team? Do we know?
I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, I think they like Joe. Joe likes going empty. He went empty at LSU. They did take a couple of shots when they were empty. I think they need to do that more if they're going to do that. But I also think when they get under center, it's a better running situation for Joe Mixon. It allows him on those zone reads to really get a flow downhill, not from a standing start. Some guys can do that from the standing start. Some are really good. Jeremy Hill, who was a good running back here for a couple of years, was really good out of the I formation. Nobody runs the I anymore. But when Jeremy went from a standing start out of the shotgun, he just wasn't very good. He was really good downhill. So honestly, it's a great question because I've asked that question. I've written that question, for goodness sakes, because there's no answer to this point. I don't know their identity. I think the good part is I think it's going to evolve at some point because there's just too much talent.
And the good news is they're winning while still having that question. So, that's not a pressing question at the moment. The defense, they spent a lot of money on it, brought in a lot of free agents, and it's paying off. Top 10 in yards per game, 7th in points per game in the NFL so far. Is the defense for real?
I do. I think it is. Because I think you're seeing Logan Wilson's become not just an okay guy, he's become a really good playmaker at that position. When you get everybody in the secondary healthy, and I would assume that Chido Uzie will be ready for this next game, it's the first time you'll have all 3 corners on the field. If Jesse Bates is back, then you'll have all 5 of your main back end guys back. And the front line, for the most part, is also healthy. Ogunjobi went out a little bit the other night, and that group's been outstanding with tackles for loss and penetration and pressures and quarterback hits and sacks. I do think it's for real. That was the one for me coming into the year. I really kind of hung my hat that group has a chance to be special, and they're coming darn close to it.
This next question is one that I think we're starting to understand, but we're going to have to wait for the whole season. Is Zach Taylor the guy?
It's a good question still. I think the season has to evolve. I'm not going to get over the moon over a couple of close wins and then beating what we think now is a bad Steelers team, right? I mean, they're just bad, and it is what it is. You don't make excuses for it. That's who you had to play, and you beat them. But, yeah, I think that question still has a long way to go before we can answer it.
And the last question we have here is, and it's probably the most interesting one because, as we said the last segment, 3-1, they're already ahead of what we thought they were. How far can this team go?
I think they will get us to December to make it interesting. That December schedule is really brutal, even though you got a chunk of those games at home, with the Friscos and the Kansas Cities, and obviously, Cleveland come back. It's just that part's, and they got to go to Cleveland rather. That part's really hard, but I think they're going to get us to December, and maybe we're not going to turn our attention always to college basketball at that point, which we normally do at that time of year around here, at least of late. I think they make December interesting.
Do you think they could make the playoffs?
I think they'll make December interesting, Chris. I'm not going to go that far.
Oh, he's not willing to commit further than that. But, hey, we have some of the answers to our burning questions here. Not all of them. And the great news is we got many more weeks of the NFL season to come.